Good morning, kids. Good morning, families. It is that time of the week for us to jump into our new City Catechism devotionals together. So if you want to go ahead and grab your book, grab a Bible, we're going to go ahead and jump on in. This week is question number 19. And before we get into that, I want y'all to think about this. Think about maybe the time you got in the most trouble you've ever been in your entire life. Who knows what that is? Y'all can talk about that. Like, what is one of the times in your life that you remember where you just got in a lot of trouble? Now, I also want you to think about what the punishment was for that when you got in trouble. What did you just, were you grounded for a little bit? Did your video game get taken away? Did toys get taken away? Were you grounded and you couldn't play with your friends for a week or two? Like, think about what is the worst punishment you've ever faced. And then think back to that time, or think the next time you get in trouble, a really bad punishment's coming. How would you feel then if someone stepped in that was completely innocent, hadn't done anything wrong, and told your parents, no, I want to be punished for him. Don't punish him. Don't punish her. Punish me. I'll be grounded for 2 weeks in their place. You can take away my toys. You can take away my video games. You can take away my TV time. Whatever it is, I will take the punishment for them. How would you feel about that? I would imagine you feel really, really good about that, because that would just be an amazing feeling for someone to come in and you'd be eternally grateful to them for taking your place on the punishment. You would just be filled with gratitude. And so with that mindset, I want to lead us in to question number 19, which says, is there any way to escape punishment and be brought back into God's favor? And the answer is yes. To satisfy his justice, God himself, out of mere mercy, reconciles us to himself and delivers us from sin and from the punishment for sin by a Redeemer. To shorten that for you, yes, God reconciles us to himself by a Redeemer. See, lately we've been talking a lot about sin and then what sin means for us. What are the consequences of sin? And we talked about how God views the sin in our lives. And that we are deserving of a punishment because we've done something wrong. It's the same thing like at home. When you do something wrong, there's a punishment. That's what we talked about last week. But this week, we asked the question, is there a way to get out of that punishment? Is there a way to escape it? See, most of us in this world know your punishment's your punishment. You're going to have to face the consequences of your actions. But God, in his grace and in his mercy, has given us a way out of that punishment. We've talked about this numerous times before. He allows us out of our punishment by giving us his son, Jesus, on the cross. And the crazy thing about all this is it wasn't something that just happened, that was an accident or God came up at the last minute. He planned this. This was always a part of God's plan and will for you and for me. He spent a long time making sure this would happen. If you go as a family, I encourage you to read Isaiah 53 and focus on 10 and 11, if you will, but read the whole chapter. As you read through that chapter, I want you to think, who is Isaiah talking about? What is he talking about in Isaiah 53? You see, the book of Isaiah was written before Jesus was even hundreds of years before Jesus was ever born. But yet, if you look closely, you see that in Isaiah 53, he's talking about Jesus. He's talking about what Jesus is going to come to do for all of us. He lived in heaven and he stepped down from his place in heaven to live amongst us, to be perfect, and then to give his life as a sacrifice to take our punishment for our sin so that we could spend eternity with God in heaven. It was always a part of his plan. It was always something that God was going to do. It wasn't, like I said, it's not an accident. It's not something he came up with at the last minute. This was a part of God's story and plan. The Old Testament points us to Jesus, and the New Testament points us back to Jesus. All of it surrounding. It's because it was planned for ages. And the really cool part wasn't that Jesus just died on the cross. That in of itself is amazing, to take that sacrifice and to die on the cross. But what did he do 3 days later? He rose. He was alive. That is the coolest part of this story. He overcame death. Christ defeated death so that we don't have to die. Yes, our earthly bodies may pass, but we are going to spend eternity with him in heaven. You see, when you choose to say, God, I give my life to you, I love you, I put all of my faith and trust in you, you're covered by the sacrifice of what Christ did in dying and rising again. It's remarkable. It's the greatest story ever. It's the greatest gift ever. That we have a God that came, lived perfectly, took our punishment, defeated death, went to heaven, and promises us, if we live a life centered around him, that all of that is our inheritance. It's promised to each and every one of us. That's awesome. It doesn't get any better than that. So yes, there is a way out of our punishment for our sin, but it only exists through putting our faith in Christ. Our way out of our punishment is only through Jesus. There's nothing we can do on our own to get out of our punishment. It's only through a Redeemer. And that Redeemer is Jesus. And that is why we celebrate him the way we do. Hopefully this leads to some wonderful discussion about areas in your life where you've experienced Jesus, where you've experienced grace and mercy. Talk as a family about areas in your life where you've been forgiven of something and how that feels, and to just talk about what it means that Jesus died for us, that we never take that for granted, and that we never become complacent when we hear that truth. Thank you guys so much. We love you. Hope you have a wonderful week. We miss you guys. Bye.